Hello everybody, it is the Last Raider and we are back with another video. And we all told them that it wasn't, but nobody listens to the gun guys. No one listens to the It's amazing to me because any other hobby that you go into, whether it be gunpla, whether it be puzzles, shipbuilding, classic cars, any other hobby that you go into, everyone wants to consult an expert in that hobby, except when it comes to gun enthusiasts. When it comes to gun enthusiasts, everyone wants to talk to any Tom, Dick, and Harry that has an opinion that doesn't own a gun. Okay? And we did this with bump stocks. Everyone's been sitting back saying, as most of you know, I had a bump stock, got refunded because they changed the laws, and I'm still pretty fucking pissed about that. But because I wanted a product, and they decided, well, we can't sell you this product now because we kind of screwed up. Or the ATF has decided they want to arbitrarily make laws. So I ended up getting all my money. I spent $300 on I think it was a slide fire. And they sent me my money back, told me, we can't give you your slide fire because, they're illegal now. You have to sign an affidavit, or you have to get like a tax stamp, get a machine gun permit and all this nonsense. I'm like, I don't have the money for all that. Well, you're just tough luck. And I really hate that because they took my rights as an American and it makes it only available to rich people. People like Dianne Feinstein and all of them will still be able to buy stuff like that because they'll be able to skirt around, tell everyone, well, I'm a senator and I have money, and they can buy their rights, whereas I don't get to buy my rights. It limits it to who has the most money. But we have a bit of a victory coming in here, because apparently they tried to prosecute someone on a bump stock, and they got a real expert in there. Because here, let me tell you something. Yahoos with an opinion work well in Congress, not so well when you get them in front of a judge. Keep going on here. In Houston just today, a federal prosecutor appears to have gotten cold feet right before the trial began in the face of an ATF expert prepared to testify that bump stocks do not a machine gun make. The prosecutor withdrew the bump stock possession charge, proceeding only with charges facing less resistance. From the Houston Chronicle today. Isn't this interesting? We've backed down on the bump stock. This is a bad thing, because if you're smart, this is what I would say to the guy that's doing this. I would pursue the ATF. I would pursue the false charge. It's almost to the point now where it's like there's a thing with the AR-15 that's becoming a problem for the ATF, in that because of the definition of what is a lower receiver, I think it also has to have like a bolt has to be a part of the lower receiver, and because of the way an AR-15 is designed, the bolt actually sits in the upper receiver. Because of that, it only has, I think, half of the requirements in the lower receiver to make it qualify as a lower receiver. And this has actually been taken and thrown out of court in many instances. Personally, I'd turn around and sue the fuck out of the ATF real quick and make this a federal case, because once you have case law take effect and strikes this down, then it's like, well, no, you can't declare this as a lower receiver. And same thing with this bump stock nonsense. If you get caught, if you have one and they go after you, I'd turn around and go after the ATF afterward, because they don't have any. I would make them get into court, either a state or local court, and set a precedence. Force them to set a precedence in the court that this is not a machine gun, and that will start eliminating things. That's how you start fighting this authoritarian bullshit. You hold their feet to the fire and test them in it. If they burn up, their arguments burn up, their arguments burn up. If their argument stays, their argument stays. You fight it in other actions. But this is just amazing here. Senior U.S. District Judge Gary H. Miller convicted A.J. Denegren, 44, on 3 remaining counts that he lied when he purchased a handgun, rifle, and ammunition, and illegally possessed a weapon as a person who had been committed for mental illness. As far as I know, in Missouri, we don't have this because we do understand. If you look at the statistics, people with mental illness actually do not commit a whole lot of crimes. They're actually people that are really, really bad. They're usually committed to a home. People who can function to some extent in society, normally they just, yes, they have mental issues, but they just want to be left alone at the end of the day. But anyway, apparently this is Houston, I think. I'm not sure if this is Texas or not. Well, one more reason Texas is less Texas than Missouri is now. Anyway, experts had conflicting views on the bump stock matter. So apparently he had a bump stock when they got him. Said defense attorney Tom Berg, but Rick Vasquez, a retired ATF agent, and firearms expert, even worse, would have told the court the bump stock did not meet the statutory definition of a machine gun. And yes, it does not. Because the statutory definition of a machine gun, for those who don't know, is you pull the trigger, you make the trigger function one time. That means you just pull it. You don't depress it. This is how interesting the law is. Simply pulling the trigger and releasing it are two different functions. In other words, I pull the trigger, it goes bang. If I pull the trigger and it goes bang, bang, that's a machine gun. Okay? It cannot fire no less than 2 bullets per function of the trigger. In other words, when I pull it, if 2 bullets pop out, whoop, that's a machine gun. Doesn't matter if it only shoots 2 bullets. There you go. Now, how I know this? Because, yes, they're trying to say the bump stocks are illegal because what a bump stock does, for those who don't know, you push forward on the gun and the recoil resets the trigger every time. It's not actually doing anything other but using natural blowback from the rifle to reset the trigger, and you're just hitting the trigger multiple times. Honestly, there's a method of bump stocking or bump firing pistols, which is basically just you just take your finger in there. It's like when kids were little. You'd take your finger when you want to shoot a gun, one of those toy guns that went bang, 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 bang. You want to shoot it fast, you put your finger in there, hold it by the handle, and you just wiggle it back and forth really hard and fast. And what would happen is it would get the pistol that would make the noise go bang, 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 and be like a machine gun when it would go off. This was done once in Sicario when the movie Sicario, when the one dude, he goes out there with the pistol and he tells him, do you recognize my face or whatnot? And they're in the middle of the street and he takes the pistol and he ratchets it real good and he just empties a whole magazine into him at point blank in a matter of seconds. Same concept. Bump stock, pretty much the same thing. You're holding your trigger stationary. It's just you're applying just enough force to let it bounce back into your trigger finger and allow it to pop off shots. And it hits a pretty decent fire rate. The reason why we know this is wrong is because they went after bump stocks, but they can't go after binary triggers because binary triggers operate on the same, not on the same function as a bump stock, but operate on the same legal principle as a bump stock, which is we're only operating a single function of trigger. Remember I told you before, the single function of the trigger is simply pulling the trigger back. That's not releasing it. Pulling and releasing a trigger are two separate functions. And so the people that make binary triggers, that make the Echo trigger and whatnot, go ahead, look these up. They're amazing devices. They went to a judge. They went down all the legal avenues and they said, okay, what if we build a trigger that you can pull it and it goes bang? Is that a single function of the trigger, or do we have to release it? And the judge said, no, those are two separate functions. They said, so what if we built a gun that fired when you released? And there's actually guns that do this. They don't fire. I think some forms of revolvers, I think a Smith & Wesson double action, you pull the trigger all the way back. Some of them you would have to release them, and that would fire the trigger, or that would fire the revolver off. Some guns are like that. You pull them back to cock it, and then you let go, and it will fire. It'll release the hammer after you let go of it. So there's actually guns that have been designed like this to fire and operate in this particular fashion. And so what they did was they just simply made a trigger that fires. When you pull the trigger, it goes bang. When you let go of the trigger, it goes bang. And then they put a selector switch on it, so you could go from binary mode to semi-auto to save, all that good stuff. So we already know the argument to make a bump stock a machine gun is bullshit. And this here is just proving that all it's going to take is one good case, somebody determined to go after it and just be bullheaded and vengeful. And that's like, if it were me, that would be I'd be the kind of person to do that, because I get screwed over by some government official. It's like, not until you're on your knees, bub, does this end. Not until you're begging me to stop. That's when this ends. Or unless I just want to destroy you at that point. I've had to do that to the government once or twice. I've had to take them down the legal route to the back of the court woodshed and give them a good tanning at that point legally. But anyway, here we go on with this, continuing forward, because it's not a very long article. I'm just chasing rabbits at the moment because I'm actually excited about this. The prosecution dismissed the case after the expert came out. Remember what I said before? We don't want to listen to the experts in the gun hobby until the experts come out and will be heard. And once the experts are heard, it's like, wow. This is why the gun lobby usually fails in almost everything they do, because they refuse to consult the experts. Am I saying there are not arguments based on gun facts that could be made for gun control? Oh, yeah. You could. To give you an example, you probably have a better... Back in the day, back in like the 80s and 90s, you see a lot of states could get pistol bans passed really quickly. They could pass pistol bans tomorrow if they wanted to, because they would come out and say, look, pistols are more dangerous than AR-15s. Here's the FBI statistics. Pistol permits everywhere. You would have to buy them. They could do this. They're going for the AR-15 because it is one of America's most popular rifles. They're going after it. And let me explain something. There is not a ban on the AR coming. For even the lefties out there that are diehard, like, oh, we're going to take him. No, they're never going to ban the AR. What they're going to do is they're going to do the same thing as what they're doing with the bump stock and what they're trying to do with the pistol brace. Is they're going to make it an NFA item and force you to pay a tax stamp. I've done this on the Q Tactical brace. You take just the Q Tactical brace, 14 million of them are in circulation. Take half of that 14 million, just take 1 million of those, and say the ATF could get a $200 tax stamp for 1 million, just 1 million of the Q Tactical braces. That's $200 million, folks. It has nothing to do with keeping you safe. They are jumping on this bandwagon of yours so that the government can enrich themselves. Those weapons will still be out there, but they know a certain percentage of people will be able to afford it, and they'll attempt to try and hang on to them via paying a tax stamp if they do push it, unless this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and people actually do fight back, which they're hoping that doesn't happen either. But like I said, you take just 1 million of those stock braces, those pistol braces, that's $200 million, because you're pulling about $200 per pistol brace. Some people own multiple pistol braces because they got multiple short pistol ARs. So you see where this is going. It's not a matter of the ATF doesn't like them. The ATF loves the pistol brace, I guarantee you. The ATF loves the bump stock, I guarantee you. They love the money coming off of it. That's where gun enthusiasts get wrong about this. And that's where they need to really start sticking it to the people who are, gun enthusiasts and say, you're not helping anything. You're just enriching a government agency. That's it. They'll never get rid of it. They're just simply going to tax us for it, and then we're going to be charged for a right, and then later on down the road, they'll have an excuse to charge you for your free speech, to charge you for being black in a white neighborhood. But yeah, that shit comes down the road eventually over time. But let's continue going here. Basically, said the prosecution dismissed the case, he said, because the government couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt the bump stock was a machine gun. Yes, this is true. And here at the bottom of, I believe, this is thetruthaboutguns.com. Perhaps that's because a bump stock is not a machine gun. Just a hunch. And yes, they're true. It's not a machine gun. In fact, to give you an idea, there was actually a case against bump stocks that started beforehand in which someone added a spring to the back of the bump stock. And this allowed you to depress the trigger on the AR-15 or AK-47, whichever one you wanted to use. Depress your trigger down, and it would cause the blowback would still happen, but the spring would push the AR forward. Problem was the ATF come out and said that spring makes it a mechanically operated system, and therefore that makes it a machine gun. And logically, that makes more sense than what they've been currently saying, because you still have to require some sort of manual operation. They're now saying trigger cranks are illegal, which makes me wonder, is a Civil War Gatling gun illegal now under the machine gun ban? That would be something interesting to find out. They probably don't care because there aren't that many of them in circulation at the moment. But, like I said, you've got these idiots up there who claimed, oh, we're going to get rid of the guns and save the kids. They're basically ideologues, like in everything else. I talk about ideologues in SJWs, in comics, sometimes in politics, very rarely. Also talk about them in government and movies and entertainment. They're the same group of people that are fighting against guns. They don't really know anything about firearms. Most of their knowledge comes from Rambo movies. Okay, I saw Rambo cut a man in half with a handgun. No, unless you're firing a big bullet out of there, unless you're shooting like a thumper, like a blooper gun or something like that, which is a grenade launcher. I don't see that happening. Okay, I really don't. But these idiots, they think all the most horrible things. They think, some guns, you drop them on the ground, they're just going to fire off and go in all directions. I hate to be like this, but the one scene that I hate the most is in one of my favorite movies, and that is in True Lives, where Arnold's wife drops the MAC-10 down the staircase and just all the way down the staircase. And anyone that's operated a MAC-10 will tell you, no, that don't happen. No. Most of your firearms now, unless you have an exposed hammer on the gun or you're using something really cheap like a Sten. A Sten will do that. No lie, a Sten will do that. I don't know if the semi-autos will do that, though. So most of your civilian rifles usually are pretty damn safe. My 1911, for instance, I carry a 1911. Why? I'll do a video on that if people want me to. Leave me a comment. If you guys want me to do a video on that, I will do a video on it. On why I bought a 1911 when I did. There's a couple of reasons beyond it. It's not a Urban 45. It's not that argument. There was a reason behind it. It had to do with political nonsense and everything else. But I'll give you the reasons why I bought it at the time in a video later. But like I said, you're dealing with people who really don't understand the guns that they're doing. And just like in here, where they said they were going to bring in a retired ATF agent. Like, this guy did the ATF. He knows what he's talking about, obviously. The guy that was doing the defense had a gun expert in there to fight the bump stock. And the reason why they dropped this, I can guarantee you why. Because if you can create doubt, if the prosecution had persisted on the bump stock charge, and that created enough doubt that this man had broken the law on the bump stocks, it creates enough doubt on the other charges with less resistance, the less resistance charges. It creates enough doubt on them that they could be thrown out entirely, meaning the ATF would have just wasted their entire time. It also means this guy afterward could have turned around and sued the fuck out of the ATF. See how that works? It's basically the ATF is going in there covering their own ass. Do I see this happening anymore? Yeah. I see people. I guarantee you there are people out there right now that have bump stocks and have not registered them. I'm quite certain of this. And before people ask, how do you know this? I'm about to ask you something right now. How many times the ATF come out there and say they found illegal machine guns, like actual illegal NFA items? They find these all the time. There's obviously a group of people out there that will break the law. Okay, because you push a person so far, eventually they'll say, fuck the law. The law is not doing what it's supposed to. It's doing more harm to me than good. I'm going to resist it. There are people that will do that. So you have these people that they are resisting the law. This is going to come up again. It's going to be one of these nightmare scenarios for the ATF, because if the ATF goes in there and gets someone with a bump stock, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to drop the charges. All it's going to have to say is that the other side's going to say, no, You have harmed my client. We're going to sue you now. And we're going to bring this to court so it never happens again. That's all it's going to have to take, is someone's got to go forward and say, no, 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 they're not dropping these charges. They're dropping these charges because they know they don't have a case. They have wronged my client, and my client wants retribution for this. And the ATF has made this mistake once. We will show cases, bring this case up, and probably more cases will come after it before finally someone gets the stones to fight it. They will have like 5 or 6. Well, here's 5 or 6 cases the ATF has dropped it almost 100% of the time. They've never prosecuted someone for bump stock. They are misinterpreting the law. They cannot make this work. We demand retribution and have a judge say, okay, ATF, you have to prove in a court of law that this is a machine gun. By the way, we're going to have an expert come in here who's also an ATF agent that's going to prove that that's not a machine gun. And that's what you do. You take them in, you hold their feet to the fire, you go full throttle, and before you know it, you're the guy that ended up bringing freedom back to the American people. You're basically a hero. And you didn't have to kill anybody to do it. Anyway, folks, I am The Last Raider. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notification if you're new to the channel. And as always, oh, by the way, before I leave, yes, I will do a review video on my 1911 if you people want to see that. Okay, leave me a comment telling me you would love to see the video. Say, we want to see the 19. I'll show you my dilapidated 1911. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but she gets the job done. Anyway, folks, stay safe, stay frosty. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye now.